Today is April 10th, and we are still in the age of the coronavirus and coming to you from the sacred land of the Chochenyo Karkin Ohlone people. I'm Madeline Cronenberg.
And I'm Consuelo Lara.
And this is Between Two Teachers. So today we're going to talk about what's been going on in our crazy world with the coronavirus and how that's impacted our children everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. I just wanted to talk about one thing that's happening nationally. Every school district in the country has had to come up with a distance learning plan. And so has every state. And MIT, they have an education lab, has put all of those together, linked them and read them. And it's very interesting. I took a look at it. I'll put a link to what they've put together in the materials. But one of the things that I saw that was brought up, they had a list of recommendations, and they really center around what we know is important, which is equity and the issues of connectivity and the issues of having your parent home or not having your parent home and having somebody sick and all those kinds of issues. But of all of them, the one that surprised me the most was being a mandated reporter.
Oh.
Because now that everybody's on Zoom, we're seeing each other's homes. We're seeing stuff happening behind the student while the student is online. And what if you see something that you're suspicious of? What's your responsibility there?
Oh, wow.
Right? And the MIT folks said nobody's thought of it. I mean, somebody thought of it as they were going through it, but it certainly isn't something that's been brought forward to the teachers as something to think about or even with a response for them. And it's not like it's going to happen very often, but the whole idea of these is to come up with plans for everything. And that's the one that I don't think any of them, or very, very few, would have a plan for.
You know, that reminds me about people have been talking about how there's going to be a lot of divorces because of this. There's more marital, domestic violence.
Much more. So children are seeing that. And that means there's also domestic violence targeted at children. Yeah.
Yeah. That's an unknown right there. And we need to act on that as soon as possible because these are their lives. And you're still on the
right.
If you're on the line.
We need to look at it, and we need to let the teachers know what's appropriate and what's, what steps and who they should contact. Really, that's really, the protocols, and that those protocols are in place now. And even though you're not in somebody's home, you're seeing that person's home.
Yeah. Well, the training that you get at the very beginning of the year, everybody has to get, it pretty much covers everything. It just would need some modification. Like I said,
because it doesn't presume that you're going to know this electronically.
Right.
It doesn't presume that you're going to overhear something when you're on Zoom it doesn't presume any of that.
Right. Correct. So we just need to modify that, add that to it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a very, very good point.
Isn't it? It was of all of the things that I saw there, everything else I had seen other places, and I knew California had addressed, but not that.
Yeah. And I think we're looking at how do we address the social emotional health of our children.
Absolutely.
As well. So that's going to be a big part of that conversation.
And how to give each family support. I mean, that's the other thing. Another thing I've put in there. So I've got the link to this MIT material, but also to Larry Ferlasso. And Larry Ferlasso is a teacher in where is he? In Sacramento. He is an ELL high school teacher who has one of the greatest education websites anywhere. And it's incredibly complete. And he's my kind of guy because he makes lists of everything. My lists are nothing compared to his lists. And honestly, I can only hope to have as many lists as he has. But he did a video this week talking about distance learning. He has all the lists and all. He may have even been the one who pointed me to this. But at the end of the video, he said the most important thing to do with distance learning is lead with love. Because this is hard for everybody. Yeah. And it's hard for our teachers, it's hard for our administrators, it's hard for everybody. And we all have to know that. And as we figure out how we're gonna make people accountable for stuff, we have to know nobody brought this on themselves, right? And there may be winners and losers. There may be people who are now gonna get a pass-fail and look at that, all the work she did or all the work he didn't do, but that always happens. That's the fact. And we just need to, I think, lead with love was the most important line I saw from that. Then the other thing was about Zoom, how Zoom has been banned in New York City from the New York City School District because Zoom doesn't have the same level of security for the students and student data, right? It's not a problem for us here, but it's a problem if you're bringing in minors. And Mr. Carranza, he's the superintendent in New York City. He used to be superintendent in San Francisco, and then he was in Houston, and now he's in New York City. Mr. Carranza pointed this out to the organization, to Zoom, and they weren't able or willing to make whatever change he wanted. So he pulled New York City out of Zoom.
Okay. Right.
So that's been a really interesting piece of national news because so many of us are on Zoom now. So it's just a matter of having to look at privacy issues in a very different way.
And there are alternative platforms, right?
Right,
okay.
And that do actually handle it differently.
Address that.
They address it differently. So that, but they may not have some of the efficiencies of Zoom and some of the, but there are trade-offs everywhere, right? So the question is what the trade-off here is for this. Then we get to California, and in California, Mr. Thurmond has started something called Donate Tech for districts that don't have enough tech, right? Which is not us because we've got the Chromebooks, we had one-to-one, but for all the districts that don't have that, he's been working with Silicon Valley and other donors, and we've talked about philanthropy. I'm sure they're going to step up and get involved here to come in and to fill the gap for those districts. And that's a really big deal. And he's been very active. He did a whole webinar on it, or a webinar that certainly focused on the technology needs that California students have. And that's happening throughout the country, right? Where everybody's they didn't anticipate this.
Yes.
And I think we were at least a little bit ahead because I think we're going to do it again because we've had the fire days, right? There are days when we have to stay home, and it's not because of snow days that we've built into the calendar like they do in the Midwest and the Northeast, but because we've got climate change issues with fires, right? And so we really need to look at our distance learning efforts here as being part of how we're preparing for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point.
And not a one-off for a pandemic that'll never happen again.
Yeah, we don't know.
No.
We don't know. We need to prepare for the worst of it.
Yeah, and the other thing, this distance learning doesn't make you a worse teacher. It doesn't hurt you, right? It just makes you have to adapt to something that you never thought you were going to have to adapt to, and certainly not overnight, which is what they wound up having to do. Yeah. And the teachers union is having a big, once again, LAUSD is in the news for the distance learning agreement that they've put together with the district. So every district now has to come up with, from nowhere, a distance learning agreement. And some of them are good at it because they were close to it or they're in negotiations, and some are struggling with putting it together. And teacher, and I think it also has to do with how where your teachers are and how comfortable they are with the whole idea of doing it.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of professional development for sure. Yes.
Right, right. And that's out there. I mean, and Mr. Thurman did refer to that the other day on his webinar. I went to the page that he sent us to, and there is a lot of professional development on distance learning.
Cool.
There really is. And it's just a question of whether or not districts or states are going to come up with one formula or adapt the ones that are out there, or have students. There are a lot of teachers who could take these classes that already exist and then become certified in it, just like you become certified in anything else.
Yep.
Right. And we've done that in lots of other things. We've done that in many different areas. Right. So this is, I think, just one more area that everyone's going to wind up, 10 years from now, the look back might be, oh, that's when we started distance learning.
Yeah, it'll become just a common thing for all teachers to be able to go back and forth and use that, another tool in your toolbox.
Exactly.
You're going to be gone. Okay, got that. And here, here's how we address that. And it's going to be like a hybrid of in-person and tech. And so, yeah, it is going to change how we teach.
It's absolutely going to change it. There is no question it is changing it, because what's going to happen is there are people who are going to love it, and they're going to, right? That's it. And the ones who don't love it are probably going to retire, right? That's really what's going to happen.
Yeah.
There is that. That.
Okay.
So then, and then one thing I did want to speak about, because one of our issues is privatization. And once again, this came up this year. The federal government is putting out the CARES Act, which is an opportunity for folks to apply for loans to help them get through not having to close down their businesses. And the reason for that is to replace the money they would get from their customers. That's really the purpose. The purpose is, if I was running a restaurant, I'm not getting any money from my customers. The loan is so I can get some money. I can pay my employees as if I had customers. And this money is replacing that. The charter schools, once again, want to double dip. They are getting money, just like we are getting money. We're a school district. We don't have to apply for that because we're getting our state money.
Yeah.
They're getting their cut. They get their ADA cut.
Yeah.
They want this extra money to buy extra stuff. Right. Totally unfair. Not the purpose of the loan. The restaurant guy is not supposed to get the money so he can buy a better oven and fire all those people and not, have them all go on unemployment and he gets free equipment. That's not what the purpose is.
Yeah.
The purpose was to keep your employees.
Yeah.
So that's and the other thing is they're asking to be seen as small businesses.
Oh, geez.
As because the district can't apply. We don't qualify because we're getting money.
Wow.
Anyway, it's just one more. They are ever vigilant to.
Oh my gosh.
It's
all about profiteering. So they're doing their job, trying to make profit.
Yeah. They're on board at all times to do that.
Yeah.
The other one that's happening around that is what's happening in Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to, the district has had their meetings and they're moving ahead with closing all the schools that they were going to close.
Yeah.
And in doing that, they're not, the families that really want to object to it are not having an opportunity to attend board meetings, to do the kind of outreach and work that they would be able to do if we weren't in this pandemic and having inaccessible board members and meetings. And what I thought was the best line, and I think it came from the teachers union president in Oakland. And right now what's happening is there is a stop on evictions, right? Different cities are saying, Gavin Newsom said it. There's a halt on evictions. You cannot evict people now because they're not making, the reason you're evicting them is because they've lost their job because of the pandemic, and you're just sending everybody out into the street. So you legally cannot evict.
Okay.
And he said, yet the school district is evicting our schools by co-locating and closing these other schools. You're evicting them.
Yes, yes, that's
It's
true.
the same exact thing.
Yeah.
They're not being given an opportunity, another opportunity, the opportunity they legally should have because of this pandemic, and you're sort of using it against them.
And aren't they just asking for a stop, a moratorium on it? That's what they're asking for.
Right.
Right.
And on co-locations, that they don't have to move out or make room for this other school.
No. Right. Right.
New
Oh.
co-locations. That's what
No
they're-
new one.
Right.
Yeah.
No, the moratorium on new ones. They're not saying you have to close down all the charter schools. That's not
Oh, nobody's saying that.
what they're saying. Not what they're saying. They're saying moratorium on growth and a moratorium on co-locations.
Right.
Right. And they're not being heard, which is, very, so perhaps we discuss this, perhaps we'll have someone come on and talk about that.
That would be great. And now with our new format here, it'd be easy to bring people in.
Much easier. Right.
Yes.
One more box. Instead of 2, there will be 3.
Yeah. Looking forward to that.
So then we get to the school, to West Contra Costa. So tell me, what's happened
Yes.
this week there?
Okay, all right. Well, at our last board meeting, we talked about the COVID-19 update and about the school closures. Of course, West Contra Costa, like everybody around the nation, we're in the middle of this school closures. And the distance learning is at the top of the agenda. And we're in phase 2, working with parents, teachers, and students to keep focus on this issue. And this district is very aware of the equity issues in this and looking at the digital divide.
Right.
Trying to address that, make sure we keep sight of that, because we know there's inequities in that. So they have a lot of principles in action, and they're looking at a lot of different theories of action and ways to problem solve. Now, people keep asking questions about grading, graduation, assessments,
Right.
transfers, enrollments. All of that is being discussed with our teacher unions and all of our other unions as well, different departments, and with parents and students. So nothing's happened yet, but those things are on the table, and they're trying to organize that input equitably as well. So I like trying to balance high expectations and accountability with flexibility, empathy, and grace. So I thought that was very nice. Some of the distance learning platforms are using Google and Classroom and Seesaw, also Google Suites, Docs, Slides, Calendar, Meet, and Zoom via Clever. And that was when I didn't know Clever. And so, student teacher online learning application hub. So they're out there putting all of these things together. And then, of course, it's all got to come to the board to get approval. There have been about 23,000 Chromebooks have been given out, and they still need more. They're short, I think, about 600. So they're calling for more, and they're getting a lot of cooperation from like Xfinity, Comcast to help with getting internet and getting hotspots.
Right.
So there's a lot of reaching out and advocacy at the state level, because West Contra Costa, we're not alone. Everybody's
No, we're not alone at all.
in the same boat with this. It's new. It's totally new. It's just like we're all pioneers in putting all of this together. And we're gonna.
Well, it's interesting. See, it's the next step. There's so many of us who worked on it for such a long time. This is the last little group of folks who because we never could get it all the way over the hump. And it took this to have that happen, because there was always opposition and always all the reasons you didn't need to do it, and it's too expensive, and you don't really need to go digital anyway, all these things. Because when I ran on the school board, digital divide was my number one thing I ran on in 2006. So, and that I was always talking about it because I was a technology teacher, right? And so it was a natural thing for me. But and I was on all of these committees and all of this. So it's very interesting for me and people who've worked on it a long time to see how this now has come full circle. And now everyone's going to be there. There's nobody left.
Yeah.
You cannot oppose it.
No, I could imagine that at one time it was thought of like, oh, well, that's very nice to go that way. It's kind of a little frivolous thing, but not really necessary. And at this point, it's very necessary. It's crucial. Yes. So you're right. It pushes it forward, and we're going to finish what was started.
We're going to finish it.
Yes.
It's like the last 2 miles. Like we built the whole railroad. Now the last 2 miles that you've got to finish it. I mean, we used to have the list of teachers who, because we ran these summer programs where teachers would come to this technology university in the summer and learn all these things. But of course, the same people came, and there was always a group of people that we knew have never opened the box, have never actually opened the box.
No,
right? True. And this is and that's just the way it is. It's like the teacher I taught with who kept his analog phone, even when he was told, no. If you want to, we're going to give you a number, and you have to at least use a digital phone because you're going to have. He said, no, I'm not going to do that. And so if he was sick, the only way he could call in is if he went down to a digital phone booth at a gas station to make
my goodness.
a phone call, because it wouldn't take his teacher number. There was no mechanism for the last person that didn't want to do it, right?
Now we all are getting.
Now there is. Now we're all in.
Necessary. So, switching from that, the other thing is about in the district about food.
Yes.
We've given out last week, I think, 93,000 meals at different schools, 9 schools, and 8 community sites.
So it's 17 altogether, right?
Mm-hmm. And they're going to add supper now. They were doing breakfast, lunch, and now they're going to add supper. And they don't ask for IDs. If you show up and you need food, they will give you food. And this brings to question about essential workers. We know, our food service people, custodians, who need to make this process happen, have to come out, of their homes and then, provide this work. So they're working closely with the unions to make sure. I worry about their exposure, and so
absolutely.
Make sure practices to control any kind of infection, and that they have the protective equipment, and that there's all the cleaning and sanitizing that needs to be done. And I hope they do work closely with those unions to make sure they have all what they need, because everybody wants to provide this service for our children in our community. Everybody knows that that's important. So we need to do it the right way.
Right.
So that's about food. And I predict it's going to go even, they're going to need more as people more losing jobs, running out of money, need food for their families. We're going to need more of this available for our community. So
we are. It's going to get worse before it gets better. I mean, that just is pretty clear. Just because it appears that even if whenever it is that the shelter in place is lifted, that doesn't mean that day everybody's going to go back to doing what they were doing in the beginning of March. So many of those businesses are not going to recover, at least not immediately.
Right.
And some of them are not going to recover at all. So
right. There's going to be a lot
all of that.
Yeah. And then another part is about care, child care, because if those families have to leave, they have children, so they're going to need some child care for their, for their families, so that they can go to work and provide. So it's all there. And they're working with the Contra Costa Board of Education and the county in this area, which is great. I just love these partnerships. They're being
big time partnerships. This is big time partnerships.
Yeah, so important. And then they're very aware of the district mental health and special services, special education, trying to reach out as much as possible during this time. Again, it's how do we deliver these things? So all of that is a high priority, big concern, working on that. and just communications. How do we make sure that we communicate to everybody about all of these resources? And all of us as leaders, whether the principals and the teachers and the district staff, we all need to be communicating like you and I are right now.
Right.
Everybody needs to be out there communicating. It reassures our kids, our families, our teachers, and it helps us feel some hope, and it gives us the strength and confidence, to move forward with positive, because this will end.
This will end. That's right.
I don't know when, but it will end.
And the natural thing for folks to do is to make it even more of a catastrophe than it is. And it is a catastrophe. I mean, there were so many problems with it, and there are lives being lost. But at the same time, we're going to process through it one way or another. And communication is absolutely the key thing. And then knowing what you can do, how you can help, right? So some people can volunteer and help with the district. The district, I think, primarily wants their own employees to go, who are vetted to be the ones who do that. But I did find one place called Volunteer Surge, and that's an organization. The Rotary is partnering with them, and I just was so impressed by what they're doing. So I just wanted to put this out there. They will, if you're home, and especially if you're someone who's not supposed to get out, but you can get online, you can get trained, and you go through an 8-hour training program, just online, Volunteer Surge. And at the end of that, you can become somebody who either calls to support people who need the support, or who is on a list, a call center list, to give information to people who need support. And the Rotary is partnering with this organization and others. They want 1 million people to sign up to do it. And I just think for folks who are twiddling their thumbs and saying, there's no way I can help because I'm stuck at home. Mm-hmm. No, there is a way. Yeah. That's one way you can do it. And they also have an opportunity for folks who wanted to go and do some more volunteering than that, and are younger or able to get out and do it. There's another training there for them, and then they can go on site and be an on-site volunteer in the Volunteer Surge program in COVID.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
So it is there. And
yeah,
I'll link to it. I'll link to it
okay.
In every which way. I've put the links up on my Facebook and on all the Facebooks that I'm connected to. And I'm going to keep doing it, because I really do think that this is a really useful way to do it. That they've put something together that allows you to, it's sort of like in a political campaign when we do outreach and do texting to people all over the country. So maybe you're talking to people all over the country. Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Yeah. But you put in 2 or 3 hours a day on the phone, and you're helping the folks that really need the help.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great idea. The district definitely does need more volunteers. And I mean, everybody needs some additional help. But I love that process. That's wonderful. And I guess that's it for the district. And if you have questions, you should ask. Go on the website. There's a lot of different links for all of these different issues. And if there's something you think of, or a way you want to help, or if you've got a solution we haven't thought of, please share.
Yeah, let us know.
Or
if you know somebody who's got a solution, the idea here is to share the ideas. Different ideas resonate with different people, and people have different skill sets. And so it's just a matter of everybody knowing you can put it on Nextdoor, you can put it on whatever mechanism you have to share out, right? And there's more and more of them. There are 2 actual actions we can take when we always do our take action, and I'll put these up too. One of them is by the Network for Public Education, and essentially it's against having these charter schools go after this money. And just to say to Congress, they should be ineligible. There is no way that you should be able to double dip, and that's a fair enough issue that we should write to our congressmen. They've set up a campaign to write to your congresspeople and say, no, they can't do this. This is totally unfair. And it's the same deal as, but they make the case, oh, but we are a nonprofit, we are a business. The thing they don't want to be considered when it doesn't work for them. Right?
That's
And
interesting.
isn't it? I mean, that's
Yeah.
just it,
Oh, we're
on
a
their little list.
nonprofit here. Oh, but we're a business here. Oh, really? Make up your
Yes.
mind.
Yes. Or we're a public agency.
Yeah,
Right?
we're an LEA.
We're a public school.
Yeah.
We're all of these things. We're all of these things.
Okay.
The other one is by SEIU, the union, and they have a petition to protect the health and safety of all caregivers, so that there is protective garments and equipment for everybody. So, for example, the people who work in nursing homes, who are at the incredible highest risk, are
Wow.
not necessarily given. I mean, if you're a custodian in a nursing home, you're at tremendous risk, because
Yeah.
that's the group of people. Well, they're not given protective clothing. They're not looked at as being on that list. They're not
Wow.
treated the same way. And that's what SEIU is trying to say. If you are the person in the nursing home who works in the kitchen, you too should have everything that the nurses and the doctors have.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It shouldn't just be, oh, well, you're just the person in the kitchen. So we have to elevate that and say everybody needs to have it. And so that's that's an action that we can go out and sign up on.
Good.
And there were two other things. I wanted to share this out. There are two podcasts that are now about the pandemic.
Okay.
And one of them is by the people at Capitol in Maine, who I think who also are very close to in the public interest, the people that have done.
Oh yeah.
Right, those folks. So
Sure.
it's a podcast called Pandemic Nation.
Ooh.
That is the name, right? They only had 5 of them, but he talks to people like these nurses and the people talks to all kinds of different people about how the pandemic is affecting them. And it gives you a much broader perspective. And the other one is interesting because it's put out by the World Economic Forum. And this really does tell you the financial aspect of it. So you don't get, which you and I have both watched. Now you watch Bloomberg, I watch Bloomberg, but now I'm watching CNBC and Fox Business, right? And so they all have a very different perspective.
They do.
Financial perspective,
right? Right.
So this is called World versus Virus.
My.
And it's put out by the World Economic Forum, and it's their podcast explaining the world economic implications of the pandemic, of the virus.
Oh, wow.
All right. So they're worth it if you're interested in just learning something a little different.
That's good. That's a good resource.
Yeah, those are all good resources. And then the last one is something you can go to entertain yourself. And it's the social distance powwow.
Oh, I think I've heard of that.
It's powwow season. And
yes.
all over the country, they were supposed to be doing their powwows now, but now they cannot. So just like all the other things that are happening have been moved online, all the church services and dance concerts and all these things that have been moved online, so have the powwows.
Oh.
So you can just search for social distance powwow and you can attend the social distance powwow.
Wonderful. Okay. That sounds good.
That's it. Then we're down to 2. Now we have our shout out. Do you have a shout out?
Oh, do I have a shout out? Oh my gosh. Just a shout out to all those who are, going out every day and making sure that our children are fed. I mean, that's a real big issue. So
huge issue.
Do you have somebody you're thinking of?
I have 2 birthday girls. One of them is Dolores Huerta.
Yes, yes.
Right? And today is her birthday. We'll say how old she is because it's all over the internet. Dolores Huerta is 90 years old today.
No, I didn't know she was that old. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Looks great.
And you know who the other birthday girl is. The other birthday girl is you. So happy birthday. You're Dolores Huerta's twin. Her astrological twin.
Oh yes. The spirit. We have that.
You share the spirit.
The spirit, for sure.
The spirit of April 10th, right?
Yes, yes. Oh, great. That's good. That's
So I
good.
hope you have a wonderful birthday.
Oh, yeah. Lots of,
And I know our Carlos, who we miss, has however contributed a joke for our to close our show.
yes, he has. Yes, he
So go
has.
ahead.
Okay. So, Madeline, what is a horse's primary concern when voting?
This is a great election joke. I don't know.
A stable economy. Thank you, Carlos. That was
Thank you,
great.
Carlos. Happy birthday, Consuelo. See you
Thank
all
you.
next week. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.